Earth Zero. Shall we begin? Following his rescue of President Rickard from Madripoor, Nick Fury was chosen as the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. by the Global Peace Agency. Fury never trusted his nameless, faceless superiors. He slept with one eye open. When Captain Comet returned from space demanding to see Miles Craven, Fury would uncover S.H.I.E.L.D's secret origin. S.H.I.E.L.D. had been international operations, acquired by the GPA in a hostile takeover. Accompanied by his most trusted agents, including Kevin Coe, Fury would shut down Craven's last I.O. installation, Project Cadmus. However, before the project data could be recovered, Coe transformed into an OMAC and attacked Fury. Losing an eye, Fury would prefer to never sleep again. Liz Allen is no mere teenager. She is a visionary. Liz envisions a future wherein corporate society will make decisions on a global basis for the common good. No poverty, no sickness. Tribal nationalism will become a relic. Alchemax views the public eye, a subscription-based police force, as the first step into such an inevitable future. But will her future society have flying cars? Shock it all, I want flying cars. In her dreams, Jessica Jones can levitate and rend steel. In her nightmares, she relives the collision that killed her family. In the morning, she is followed by a man in a purple suit whose face she can never remember. In the afternoon, she daydreams of green ooze leaking from a Fisk tanker truck. On sleepless nights, she stares at official accident photos depicting no such ooze. And throughout the day and night, she fidgets with a business card slipped to her by a barista. On the front, it reads, Mark Ewing, Alias Investigations. And on the back is scribbled the one word that chills Jessica to the bone. Control. Darkseid and Lady Loki's wedding invasion reduced Canada to rubble. The territories were frozen by frost giants. Entire towns fell into fire pits. Tens of thousands processed into parademons. If not for the courage of its superheroes, the nation would have been lost. And so, the Alpha Flight program was initiated. Publicly, it identifies and nurtures superhuman talent for natural defense. Privately, it is comprised of both volunteers and conscripts from across the multiverse. The neighbor to the north is no longer friendly. Spider-Man had vowed never to ignore a cry for help. Iceman had vowed to be a role model. Firestar had vowed she would survive. Yet, life gets in the way of vows, and trauma gets in the way of life. Spider-Man quit because of course he did. Iceman ran for his life, and Firestar became sick of simply surviving. While attending Empire State University, the trio met in a campus support group. One day, graduation speaker Tony Stark was abducted by the Beetle, compelling the three back into amazing action. The rescued Stark said it best: when it comes to living, the best way to go for it is to go for it. Once upon a time in Anatolia, Thalestris, queen of the Amazons, conceived a child with Alexander the Great. The child was Hippolyta. So impressed with their experience, Thalestris beseeched Alexander to conceive more with her fellow Amazons. So inspired, the goddesses gifted the newborns with immortality. So fearsome, the gods exiled them to the invisible Paradise Island. Over the centuries, Hippolyta's sisters sailed to sire the Esquicida and the Bena Maido. Meanwhile, Hippolyta desired her own child, and so she called to the sky for a proper suitor. The sky did not send just any man, but the perfect man. Their child, Diana, seeks to turn the Amazons from hawks to doves. Why, to do that would take a Wonder Woman. Veronica Cale grew up impoverished and suffering asthma. Being poor meant doctors charged more if you lacked insurance. Being poor meant being examined after all the insurance patients were seen first. Being poor meant her cancer-stricken mother was kicked out of the hospital and onto the street with only days to live. Veronica was sickened by everyone saying her mother's death was God's mercy, God's will, or God's plan. She decided that if gods afflict, she would cure. Veronica clawed her way into both business and medical school. Inspired by mythological cures, she explored fringe sites. Failing time and time again, her belief in miracle cures would wane. That is, until Wonder Woman told her of magical panaceas. Beware, Veronica. A cure can be worse than any disease. A serious house on a serious earth. Why so? The inmates here are simply batty. Arkham Asylum was established by Amadeus Arkham, naming it after his late mother, Elizabeth. During the first year, inmate Martin Hawkins, a multi-murderer from Metropolis, escaped and hacked Arkham's wife and children. He claimed the ghost of Elizabeth Arkham told him to do it. Amadeus did not believe Hawkins, not because of Martin's insanity, but because Arkham claimed Elizabeth's ghost spoke to him alone. ARMOR is the alternate reality monitoring and operational response to incursions from the God Sphere. Its director is Merlin, neither puppet nor fool. Located on Avalon in the limbo realm of Otherworld, its physics baffles those of the God realms. Avalon is accessible from the Mortal Sphere through the Sage Perilous. The Mortal Sphere is accessible to Avalon through the Sage Courageous. Once upon a time, Avalon had been administered by the fair courts of the Starlight Citadel. However, in modern times, the Global Peace Agency acquired Avalon in a hostile takeover. Question: if wily old Merlin is neither puppet nor fool, why would he bend the knee to the GPA? The religion of crime was founded in New Orleans. The religion reveres the Abrahamic God, but worships Cain as the first criminal. The religion operates more like a mystery cult that initiates and orientates all thieves and assassins in the city. It also regulates criminal activity at a profit. Profit is what caused a schism in the religion. Thieves loot data and identities. Assassins are hired to cull political and business factions. Mutant members are held in high regard as mutancy is considered to be the mark of Cain. Each guild reads from the Crime Bible, which foretells of a messianic figure, Le Diable Blanc, who will reunite the guilds. And each pays a tithe to the prophetess Kandra, an external, who arbitrates disputes. The term Atlantean denotes a nationality of genetically compatible species, collectively called Homo humanus. Comprised of city-states scattered across the world ocean, Atlantis is united under a king of kings, Anax. The legendary Atlan was the first Anax. Each city-state takes turn in choosing an Anax from a queen's firstborn son. Currently, a Cold War exists between the city-states of Deluvia and Poseidonis. Each leader claims to be the rightful Anax. The conflict arose when Prince Namor went missing, prompting Deluvia to lose its turn to Poseidonis. The UN recognizes Aquaman as the legitimate Anax. If a national emergency arises, and the Anax is unavailable or non-existent, an Ocean Master is chosen for the interim. Atlantean society is one of science and sorcery, xenophobia and exploration, tradition and adaptation. Such is the push and pull of the current. 6,000 years ago, the Kree landed a series of research outposts around Mount Elbrus. Following the Kree abandonment, The outposts were merged into a closed-system city by the Inhumans. Attilan began as a Proto-Indo-European settlement, founded by Fadian and Raya. Their son, Tuk, was the first Inhuman. Attilan contributed to the Indo-European mythologies, such as Olympus, Asgard, and Mount Meru. When fashioned, Attilan was able to launch itself into space. The city was used as a warship to conquer Hala, capital of the Kree Empire. Currently, Attilan is home to Earthling, Centaurian, Chameleon, and Compitalian Inhumans. Maxwell Lord was always very ambitious and very persuasive. Chatting his way out of poverty, Max was able to provide his son, Alistair, with a childhood better than his own. While enjoying an outing to Coast City, Darkseid and Lady Loki's wedding invasion occurred across the multiverse. Max's powers of persuasion were useless. Alistair, only 8 years old, was processed into a parademon. Max vowed on that day if he could not save his son, he will damn well avenge him. Max scoured the globe, hiring investigators, treasure hunters, thieves, mercenaries, and spies to acquire forbidden lore about the Godsphere. While doing so, he would also discover he was a mutant. Afterward, he approached several West Coast heroes with a proposition. Each hero stands on their own, but what if they were not alone? However, the Avengers are only pawns in Max's grandest ambition, to kill a god. Avengers, assemble! For hundreds of years, the Miagani people carved a network under what is now Kane County, New Jersey. In 1640, Nathaniel Wayne would map the network after making last contact with the Miagani. By 1839, Joshua and Solomon Wayne navigated the network as conductors on the Underground Railroad. Alan Wayne would purchase the Van Derme estate, under which was the network hub. It would be Alan who utilized the old maps to plan Gotham City's subway and sewer systems. Today, the Batcave provides secret access across Kane County for Batman. As for the Miagani, historians theorize they went extinct, but the Miagani were the Bat People, and bats are survivors. Belreeve appears to be just an ordinary supermax. In reality, it is headquarters for Task Force X. Located in Terrebonne Parish, Belreeve was originally the abandoned Dubois plantation. Federal corrections would acquire it during the golden age of the prison industrial complex. Thanks to the intentional loopholes in the federal three strikes law, the prison was soon crowded with inmates. Due to costs and evidence of inhumane treatment, but really due to costs, the federal government considered privatization. However, Amanda Waller lobbied for Belreeve to become a black site. While going undercover in Gotham City as the Nitrous, P.I. Jessica Jones would attend a support group. There she would meet paralyzed hacker Barbara Gordon, whose Batgirl suit enabled her to walk. Jessica would confide about tracking the Purple Man, who had serially mind-controlled her for years. The duo would name their subsequent alliance after the predators that watch and feed and bite as you bleed, the birds of prey. Death has a shadow. William Hand grew up in his family's mortuary. Lonely, he adopted Death herself as his imaginary friend. He wrote her poetry. One poem read, "The blackest night falls from the skies. The darkness grows as all light dies. I crave your heart and my demise. By my black hand the dead shall rise." Death herself then appeared as a teenage girl and pleaded for him to leave her alone. Rejected, William bit her neck, swallowing the dark force she bled. With his lovesick imagination, he then vomited a pair of black rings, meant as wedding bands. Undead, requiring the emotional spectrum to sustain him, William vomited more black rings to raise the dead, to cure his loneliness forever. Thanos tried to use the Legion of the Unliving as groomsmen and maids of honor in a marriage with death. But death marries not immortals. What simps these villains are. The Black Order is the second army of Thanos, recruited after the Deathbringers rebelled. The Black Order is comprised of heretical members of the Universal Church of Truth. They are Ebony Maw, Supergiant, Corvus Glaive, Black Dwarf, and Proxima Midnight. Currently, they are raising a new army for Thanos in the Dark Multiverse. The blue area of the moon is an artificial, self-sustaining, Earth-like environment. It was constructed as an observation outpost by the Kree while surveying Earth for inhuman experimentation. Due to costs associated with super soldier races, the outpost was abandoned. Currently, it is home to Owatu, the Watcher, who observes the hypertime of Earth Zero. In fearful day, in raging night, with strong hearts full, our souls ignite. When all seems lost in the war of light, look to the stars, for hope shines bright. Blue lanterns are powered by the light of hope. However, hope lacks self-enablement. It requires a nearby green light of will to enable itself. For this purpose, a green ring rests inside the central blue power battery. Regardless, blue rings can always render yellow rings useless. Blue lanterns reside on Odin, the most beautiful planet in the cosmos. However, missionary sites are known to exist. Earth's blue lantern, Hope Summers, built a mission in the blue area of her planet's moon. Exiled from the Dark Multiverse, the brood becomes sexually attracted to any opponent who can get their adrenaline pumping. Once impregnated, the host organism's desired characteristics are added to the parasite. A brood queen is then impregnated to spawn a generation possessing those traits. Deviant DNA is often poisonous to brood. So far, only Eternals and Karens have proven immune to brood spawn. All advanced civilizations are obligated to report a brood world so that it can be quarantined and sanitized. As a boy, Eric Lenscher suffered the ethnic cleansing camps in the former Yugoslavia. Surviving alone, he discovered he could manipulate magnetism at will. Upon discovery, he was rendered unconscious and sold, like other mutants, into slavery in Genosha. Eventually, Eric would lead a rebellion. The global community then battered Genosha with propaganda and sanctions. When the Brotherhood clashed with the mutant Peace Corps, known as the X-Men, Lenscher executed all but one for spreading dissension. Currently, the Brotherhood is the royal guard for the House of M, with Lenscher as absolute monarch. The Cadmus Project was established by international operations under the direct order of control. Its purpose was experimentation on magical, mutant, alien, and hybrid beings. The purpose was to refine such people into military and commercial applications. Early success sired the so-called DNA-aliens, life forms invented to conduct experiments on abducted people. One such DNA-alien, Double X, resulted in a three-way conflict among S.H.I.E.L.D., OMAC, and Cadmus. Double X extricated the abductees and watched over them long afterward. In a way, like the Cadmus of myth, this Cadmus sired its own lineage of heroes. Central City, Ohio, is the city where progress happens fast. The Wright brothers invented flight here. LexisNexis invented the first commercial online database here. Bruce Banner grew up here and invented the Gamma cipher here. Reed Richards invented the Excelsior spaceplane at the Air Force Research Laboratory here. Of course, there is no better proof of fast progress than Central's patron hero, the Flash. Personally, I appreciate the city's fanciful murals, especially those in the bluesy Hilltown neighborhood. Imus Champion has been called the modern Renaissance man. After multiple simultaneous careers as a financer, a profiler, and an inventor, Imus grew bored. Instead of applying his genius to end famines and reverse climate damage, Imus devoted himself to assembling Star City, where he could master adventure skills. Like other delusional tycoons, Champion sees himself as a mythic figure, with Star City as his Mount Olympus. The Celestials impregnate life-giving worlds with celestial eggs. In order to protect an egg, they mold Eternals from native fauna, projected to become dominant. Also molded from native fauna are Deviants. Deviants vary across the Earth-Zero universe. What is common is that their endonyms translate to changing people. They often mutate into diverse nutrition for a hatching Celestial. Until then, changing peoples are meant to blend into a planet's ecosystem rather than unbalance it. Other times, they mutate or possess native fauna. Early Deviants engineered progeny who could escape their world. Since Deviants loathe themselves, their progeny were programmed to exterminate their creators. These progeny, including Martians, Skrulls, Dire-Wraiths, Durlans, Chitauri, and the mythical Daemonites. In 1939, crackpot Phineas T. Horton somehow gave life to a synthetic man. Horton's android was rumored to have been the wartime marvel called the Torch. Those mysteries would remain unsolved as the Torch vanished after World War II. Decades later, crackpot T.O. Morrow, inventor of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s life model decoys, found the Torch's grave. Strangely, Morrow could swear he was guided by whispers on the wind. Upon completion of 2 additional bodies, a water spirit and an earth spirit animated them. A wind spirit then animated the Torch. They required bodies to hide from Ulthun, the Chaos Bringer. It was Ulthun who had rendered the Torch lifeless, after trapping Ulthun in an immobile shell. The synthetic siblings received costumes designed by Morrow. He named them Red Torpedo, Red Volcano, and Red Tornado. Visions of Tomorrow. Founded as Presidio San Giorgio in 1778, Coast City has always been a frontier town. This town boomed during the 1879 gold rush, and was renamed Coast City in 1901. Today, the city is on the edge of a new frontier. Ferris Aircraft operates launch sites outside the city. In addition, SWORD incarcerates its alien enemies in the nearby quarantine prison, known as the Cube. Avengers Tower is the HQ for Earth's mightiest heroes. Following Darkseid and Lady Loki's wedding invasion, Coast City repopulated faster than other cities, earning it the moniker, City Without Fear. Imagine a computerized planet the size of a golf ball. Located in the Greater Magellanic Cloud, Colu is home to the synthetic Coluans, whose technology includes force fields and miniaturization. Colu is also famous for its archive of knowledge. Coluans sexually produce and cluster in extended families. Their dominant personality types are INTJ, INFJ, INFP, and ISTJ. Coluans live an average of 3,600 Earth years, after which their minds are copied into cybernetic bodies. Most Coluans abhor nature, and many are germaphobes. They avoid warrior cultures, such as their Kree neighbors. However, Coluans did invent the supreme intelligence to civilize the Kree. Conspiracy theories are products of ignorant yet creative minds. To Bolivar Trask, the truth was far more frightening. None are in control. They all just want the same guy dead. For Bolivar, control was killing the guy first. While others in Turner County, South Dakota feared minorities and communists, Bolivar feared superhumans. He sought to control whatever gen factor was turning normal people into freaks. He recruited Miles Craven, Simon Sung, Henry Bendix, Louis Hayworth, Cecil Slinkard, and General Hardcastle. They established the Cadmus Project, Skywatch, and international operations. Control would be crippled when it lost both Skywatch and I.O. in a hostile takeover by the Global Peace Agency. Eons ago, humanitarians among the Enoch race witnessed their outreach efforts end in the Proselican genocide of Sector 666. The Enoch government exiled these humanitarians to die in space. They were rescued by the Guardians of Ur, who also shared responsibility for the genocide in Sector 666. Seeking wisdom, the humanitarians obtained cosmic awareness. A schism then occurred. One faction vowed to watch HYPERTIME and settled in the blue area. The other vowed to control all variables and settled on Okara, and so became the Controllers. The Kotati are a pacifistic society that evolved on Hala, in equilibrium with nature. For them, Hala was a garden world, until the Kree came. A warrior culture, the Kree slashed and burned the garden to erect cities. Led by Morag, a Kree expedition sought to enslave the Kotati into producing food on farms. However, the expedition met with misfortune, and Morag alone survived. He was nursed back to health by a Kotati named Palmer, who enlightened him to pacifism. So thankful, Morag smuggled the Kotati and their seedlings to safety on faraway worlds. Many hopeful Kotati were drawn to the planet Odin, future home of the Blue Lanterns. Morag would be remembered as the first priest of Palmer. Beware the court of owls that watches all the time, ruling Gotham from a shadowed perch, behind granite and lime. They watch you at your hearth. They watch you in your bed. Speak not a whispered word of them, or they'll send the Talon for your head. The Court of Owls began as a congregation of the religion of crime by the same mad Norwegian mercenary who founded Gotham City. They began as the private judges and juries who kept the secrets of Gotham's earliest elite. They surveil police, politicians, and celebrities, cataloging various indiscretions. Wait. Even the orgies? I'm, only asking for a friend who prefers redheads. Moving on. Dig this, you lousy trib. If you're here for a good brew, and even better bitches, you're a Zarnian, you bastiche. Zarnians know how to rock and roll all night and party every day. What matters is that every day above ground is a good one. Now Zarnians dislike the usual politeness. They're all about telling it like it is. Zardians ride or die. And if you ever find the main man, Lobo, sleeping it off in the back of your car one morning, just let him sleep. Buy him an egg muffin on your way into work. He'll pay you back, you lousy bastiche. Print is not dead. The Daily Planet began as Our Planet under publisher Joshua Merriweather in 1775. It reported atrocities committed by both patriots and loyalists until its office was burned in 1783. Merriweather resumed 10 years later, renaming his paper the Daily Planet. The paper closed again in June 1938. Years ago, Daily Star outcast Perry White resurrected the Daily Planet as an independent news firm. Its star reporter is Lois Lane Kent, the most dangerous woman in the world. Personally, I enjoy watching the Daily Planet channel on Pluto TV. Damage Control is a federal department co-headed by Anne Marie Hogue and Harry Stein. It specializes in hazmat removal, demolition, and sometimes disposal of extraterrestrial materials. Such materials range from weapons and tools to medicines and foodstuffs. Damage Control safely stores and analyzes these materials before passing them on to DARPA for reverse engineering and occasional commercial spin-offs. Other items are remanded to codename Garden. Are you troubled by strange noises in the basement or attic of the House of Mystery? Do you believe in rhyming demons, patriotic werewolves, and Mopey? Well, dear reader, Kane welcomes you into the Dark Avengers. Headquartered in the House of Mystery, the team is able to teleport anywhere in Reality 616. However, the house has a habit of landing on witches. The Dark Avengers deal with the harsh truth no so-called hero wants to admit. There is always a trade-off. To believe otherwise is bollocks. To control chaos, the controllers require instruments of order. Headquartered on planet Okara in the Vega system, the Dark Stars are dispatched to control chaos with cold precision. If the Spectrum armies utilize empathy to balance the universe, the Dark Stars weaponize logic. Due to the inevitable conflict with Spectrum armies, the controllers recruit Dark Force users. The first such recruit was the namesake Lania Petrovna. But Dark Force is not the only weapon in a Dark Star's arsenal. Each Dark Star wears a uniform comprised of vibranium and nth metal. Each suit is equipped with Coluan AI and is powered by energies absorbed by a wearer's Dark Force. Dark Stars are eternal outsiders, whose only vow is to stay who they are, the darkest of stars. Cue that Austin Powers theme. Orbiting Valor, Daxam was once a hellscape until the Daxamites nurtured it into a garden. Like Kryptonians, Daxamites were created by Karens as a super soldier race. They also exhibit powers under yellow sunlight, but none under red sunlight. Likewise, they were stored on a world orbiting a red sun. However, the Daxamites were considered defective. Their empathy did not wane upon adulthood. They also developed an allergic reaction to lead, but Rao refused to waste his creations, and so he secretly stored them on Daxam for further study. However, fleeing the Daemonites, Rao escaped into the Phantom Zone along with his fellow Karen lords. The Daxamites subsequently flourished. Dakham is the planetary capital, ruled by an elected council. Science informs law, culture, and religion. Hektu and Soja were once scientific celebrities until their child, Wundar, was lost in space. The boy had switched places with a lab animal just prior to a test launch. He thought that he was rescuing a pet. The ship crashed in the Florida Everglades near a hippie commune. His hippie parents concealed him from militant yokels who believed commie Martians had landed. Since then, Wundar has returned to Daxam to relate his earthly adventures. Grok on! The defenders of Earth-Zero are not a team. They aren't even friends. Why did Strange choose these lone wolves, you ask? Well, Stephen once got piss-drunk and decided to cast a hoax hex. Now his enemies fear they will be undone by a broken man, an elemental, a troglodyte, and an alien. So Strange had no choice but to commit to the hoax by gathering those who fit each description. If they help Strange, he will help them. Drink responsibly. Department H is where Canadian talent is registered with privacy. Department H is where talent is nurtured with counseling. Department H is where talent is coerced into kill or be killed missions. Director X has forged an alliance with Earth-2. He would make a deal with the devil himself to protect Canada and Canada alone. Other nations damned. The Elders are a colorful fraternity of endlings. Each possesses the power primordial and an infinity gem. The power primordial replaced their souls with eternal lifespans, while each infinity gem enables a nerdy hobby. The members are the Nurturing Gardener of Odin, Gambling Grandmaster of the Gamelands, the Tricky Runner of the Speed Force Wall, the Greedy Collector of Nowhere, the Competitive Champion of Battle World, and the Faustian Possessor of the Library of Worlds. You might think they are way OP. In actuality, they are powerless against jocks and girls. I did imply they were nerdy. When a planet is impregnated by Celestials, Eternals are molded from that world's projected dominant life form. On the ancient Earth, Homo Immortalis was molded from a tribe of proto-humans who lived on the Serengeti. The tribal leader was molded into Zurus. His protective daughter was molded into Thena. The scout became Makari. An orphan became Sprite. The best hunter became Icarus. In all, 100 Earth Eternals were molded and customized. Each was implanted with a locality instinct to remain in the solar system. Each one possessed a separate specialty to keep secret and safe the celestial egg within the Earth. In addition, the Eternals were tasked with culling excess deviation to keep the nutritional composition of deviant society balanced. Over the centuries, the Eternals have masqueraded as gods, angels, and now superheroes. Eternals even added an amnesiac god, Hercules, into their ranks. How? A drunken bargain, that's how. Excalibur operates from a simple fortune-teller shop in Savile Row. When fortune-teller Madame Xanadu foresees disaster, Union Jack is dispatched to stop it. However, the team must always compensate for what Xanadu cannot foresee. And what vision is Xanadu refusing to see? A vision one must avoid, or a vision one must embrace? They came from mythology and legend. They are the Externals, the first generation of mutants. And they are immortal. From them descended mutants, such as ferals, moleculars, psionics, elementals, and macro-manipulators. Gideon, Kandra, Saul, Cruel, Nicodemus. Each was born into different centuries and cultures, but they were all born from the same mother.
Danger, Franklin Richards! Danger!
The Excelsior was lost in space while tracking residual power cosmic. That residue transformed the Excelsior crew into 4 fantastic beings. The 4 explorers became sort of a space family Robinson. After its 5-year mission, the Excelsior crash-landed in Latveria. It was a dark and stormy night at Castle Doom. As Reed Richards warmed himself by the fire, he told his host tales most fantastic. Reed had believed in expansion. He had believed we endure. But after his fantastic voyage, he accepted that everything dies. His family will die. He will die. The Earth, the Sun, the galaxy, the universe. Nothing endures. It was then his host arose and stood by the fire. His host asked if Reed remembered him from the McDuffie School. Reed admitted he did not. Insulted, his host declared that if Reed had bothered to remember, he would know. Doom endures. Don your tinfoil hat, dear reader. Ferris Aircraft was founded by Carl Ferris and Conrad Bloch. a small airline with a flight school and a testing strip. The firm endured until Carol Ferris rescued it. Removing her sexist father and his drunken partner, Carol led Ferris Aircraft into the future. Ferris launched the Excelsior, engineered the helicarrier, assembled the modular peak, and shuttled tourists to Star City. Ferris even designed the Avengers Quinjet. Urban legend has it that a test pilot was abducted by aliens. I did say to don your tinfoil hat. Never ask me about Mr. Fisk's business. Mr. Fisk didn't do it, and I ain't no stoolie. I ain't seen nothing. What's his business? He's in construction. You know, you have a nice YouTube account here. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to it. Like if it got deleted or something. The Fortress of Solitude was grown to resemble the crystal caves that sheltered ancient Kryptonians. The interior simulates Krypton's environment. Therefore, Superman is powerless while inside due to simulated red sunlight. Visiting humans require a breathing unit for 8 minutes until adjusted to the simulated atmosphere. The fortress has all surviving knowledge of Krypton and can print natural and synthetic Kryptonian materials. The environment is maintained by 2 AI programs that simulate Jor-El and Lara Lorvan. Tesseracts utilize spatial displacement to provide habitats for endangered alien flora and fauna. My favorite feature is the inflatable silver furniture. Four Freedoms Plaza is located at 42nd Street and Madison Avenue. The plaza is named after FDR's speech that urged Congress to end World War II. FDR outlined the 4 freedoms the planet would enjoy if united against the Axis. The Baxter Building stands at the center. It is a 100-story building comprised of vibranium and adamantium. The entire plaza can reconfigure to survive attacks and house refugees. The upper 50 floors of the Baxter Building house the Fantastic Four. Fun fact, the plaza is powered by a single mother box. Team X was assembled to capture those identified with Gen Factor. Soon Cadmus discovered that no single Gen Factor existed. Rather, multiple Gen Factors were responsible for human alteration. Project Generation X studied the mutant genome with all 5 Team X operatives. Refusing to become subjects, Team X attempted escape. Only Adam Blake succeeded, fleeing Earth. The others, Stephen Callahan, John Proudstar, Alex Fairchild, and Logan, were rendered to other projects. Generation X kept their DNA samples. Eventually, Adam Blake would intercept a telepathic distress call and return. Allying with S.H.I.E.L.D., Blake would liberate the subjects from Cadmus. He discovered the subjects were clones of Team X with a 25-year lifespan. It was then the misanthropic Blake decided to adopt Roxy, Sarah, Caitlin, and Laura. However, Adam remains uncertain of his own clone, Sue. He better decide quickly. Project Director John Lynch is closing in. The monarchy of Genosha lies in the East African coast. Its capital, Hammer Bay, was founded by Rockwell Hammer. It was a slave trade hub often attacked by Marlow pirates. In modern times, Genosha bought mutants on the black market. Enslaved mutants would then ease the environmental and financial burden on the island. All mutants, even children, would be stripped of free will by the Gen Engineer. Secretly, the world government allowed the slavery in order to quietly reduce their mutant populations. The purge of population was referred to as arms reduction. When Magneto freed the mutants, the world governments declared Genosha a terrorist state. Since then, Magneto has fortified Genosha and prevented freed mutants from returning home. Due to technology, sanctions, and mutant powers, little is known of Genosha today. However, the mutant underground, led by Gypsy, has recently conducted Magneto's daughter, Polaris, to a free country. Their height is the same. Their weight is the same. Their sex is androgynous. Their skin is unseen. Their voice is monotone. They could be of any nation. The Global Peace Agency does not move in the shadows. They are the shadows. They are the nameless, faceless power brokers of peace. Whatever the mission, only the parts are seen, and not the whole. From where did they come? Our world or another? A century ago, King Azuri invited his friend, Herbert Wyndham, to visit Wakanda. Wyndham's lab was near the border, where he discovered a gorilla troop eating vibranium-laced fruit. Eventually, King Azuri would uncover Herbert's inhumane experiments to evolve the gorillas. Wyndham disappeared in a prototype starship. Azuri provided a sanctuary where the tormented troop could live in peace. Today, Gorilla City is home to intelligent-speaking gorillas, ruled by King Solivar. They even worship Hanuman, the white gorilla god. Of course, in every peaceful society, there is always that one jerk, Grodd. Decent people shouldn't live here. A mercenary called the Mad Norwegian settled in the area in 1635. Outsiders named the settlement Gotham, meaning City of Fools. Modern Gotham is known for its fortress architecture, designed by Cyrus Pinckney. The city continues to survive thanks to rent control, urban repurposing, and investment by the Wayne Foundation. However, gentrification has caused wealthy hipsters to overrun Burnside. Meanwhile, police claim squatters are turning abandoned warehouses into supervillain lairs. Despite all its problems, Gotham has the best takeout food. I recommend the bat milk and cookies. The Great 10 are super-functionaries, headquartered under the Great Wall. The rules for being a super-functionary are simple. Work hard, increase efficiency, prevent failure, and be happy. The Great 10 are tasked with representing party values and state-approved norms. The current lineup is New Batman, Thundermind, Accomplished Perfect Physician, New Wonder Woman, Radioactive Man, Immortal Man in Darkness, New Superman, Ghost Fox Killer, August General in Iron, and their leader, Collective Man. I just love those names. Existence ripples as do concentric rings in a tree. A green avatar oversees the continued survival of flora in the universe. When a life cycle ends, an avatar retires. That avatar is then planted among the Parliament of Trees. The Parliament governs the green, the sapient realm of flora. The green snakes its roots throughout the divine Garden Eternal. The Garden Eternal is tended by the godly Oaken King and Sequoia Queen, and the Oaken King and Sequoia Queen are worshipped by the Kotati, and outward the rings ripple. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. The Green Lanterns were created to replace the violently malfunctioning Manhunters. Headquartered on Mogo, the GLC draws their willpower from the Central Power Battery. A Green Lantern experiences profound pain whenever summoning the willpower to enable its ring. But pain is not the only barrier a Green Lantern faces. The green light is diluted by yellow, the color of fear. Therefore, a Green Lantern must overcome fear itself to affect Yellow. Due to Earth always being trouble, humans are overly represented in the ranks. Curiously, Ion, the Will Avatar, is particularly drawn to human lanterns, as is the patron guardian, Ganthet. While interning at Ferris Aircraft, Peter Quill stole the Marvel, a successor to the lost Excelsior. While jamming to good tunes and sipping good brew, Peter was hijacked by Yondu. The Centauri had only met one Earthling before, and that was a jackass named Adam Blake. After a medical scan, Yondu's heart suddenly grew 2 sizes, and he opted to protect Peter. Now Peter is Star-Lord. Who? Well, a legend in his own mind, that's who. He is also the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Sometimes, the real journey is a bunch of a-holes we met along the way. The Guardians of the Universe were the first ring-slingers. Following the Sector 666 massacre, the Guardians met a wanderer, Volthoom. His prism ring could channel the emotional spectrum. However, his ring was shattered upon crashing onto Earth. The Guardians promised to fix it in exchange for knowledge of the spectrum. Wami alone dissented. Volthoom advised they create rings, each one channeling a single emotional light. He claimed channeling all 7 lights was not for beginners. Upon repairs, Volthoom used his prism ring to rule the new ones. Puppets, the Guardians toiled to provide for Volthoom's emotional needs. Volthoom sacrificed Wami to satiate all 7 emotions at once. This murder tugged at the heartstrings of the Guardians, setting their rings free. Volthoom was imprisoned inside a prototype green ring and promptly expelled to Earth-3. Today, the Guardians advise and guide. They are Scar, Krona, Ganthet, Side, Appa Ali Apsa, and Harupa Hondo Hu. But where is Dabba-Dee-Dabba-Die? The Hall of Doom was designed by numerologist Dr. Natas. The hall demonstrates 13 functions, requiring a 13-member crew. Comprised of creation metals, the hall can teleport to higher dimensions, through HYPERTIME, and the Multiverse. It even has 13 doors into remote galaxies. Doom means judgment, and so Natas intended the hall to collect the knowledge necessary to judge creation. Mysteriously, the hall crashed into a Louisiana swamp without Natas on board. Lex Luthor repurposed it in his pursuit of immortality and ultimate knowledge. The ingenuity he thereafter demonstrated inspired Jenny Beyonder to declare Luthor Scientist Supreme. The Carbonell House was an orphanage sponsored by Maria Carbonell Stark. It was managed by the kindly Edwin Jarvis. On the day Jarvis retired, Maria's son, Tony, visited. Suddenly, a boom tube opened on the premises, devastating the orphanage. Edwin survived due to Tony donning the Iron Man armor. From that boom tube marched Darkseid and Lady Loki's wedding invasion. Following Darkseid and Loki's defeat, Iron Man offered Jarvis a new position, and on where the Carbonell House stood, now stands the Hall of Justice, named after the one word Darkseid could not translate. Jacob Marlow is a literal rags-to-riches story. Marlow was a homeless drunk with a talent for coding. On liquor labels, he wrote code for Void, an AI quantum prediction system. His story concludes with him buying a suit at Goodwill, walking into a bank, and exiting with a loan. Of course, the secret of one's success is that their success story is pure fiction. Void can predict the lives of everyone on the planet. Marlow's advice is so sought that monarchs, presidents, and religious leaders are on a waiting list. He calls himself Imp, a portmanteau of Imp and Emperor. But who is Jacob Marlow really? Did he rise from the streets, or did he fall from the skies? Not every billionaire is out to save the world. Most are just out to loot it. And what they fear most is the future sought by superheroes, a post-scarcity society. Imagine a society with no hunger, poverty, or exploitation. Who will save the corporatocracy from obsolescence? Justin Hammer will. The Hand was founded in 1588 by Kaganobu Yoshioka. He had grown mad under Japan's class economy. A mind for numbers, Kaganobu saw how years were exchanged for survival. Years exchanged for suffering. The foolish believed they were sacrificing in exchange for wisdom, for deferred gratification, and for ultimate reward. He calculated the exchange rate and determined it was all a fool's gamble. Exiting this economy, he gained true autonomy in the mountains of Iga. There he heard tale of the sickly ones, 5 emaciated beings who imparted free wisdom. Amused, Yoshioka imparted his own wisdom. You get what you pay for. The sickly ones then offered Yoshioka an exchange. He would be reimbursed with years of life in exchange for the pulping of his soul. Knowing souls were mere currency for gods, Yoshioka saw yet another economy he could exit. Yoshioka agreed. The sickly ones handed Yoshioka the anti-death equation. He peered into his palm and saw nothing but an empty hand. And so he laughed, now deaf to all promises. Yoshioka became a ninja, murdering anyone who exchanged lifetimes for empty promises. All whom he murdered with an empty hand. He lived to be 121 years old, when a fatal arrow rendered him a wisp of smoke. Who keeps the best secrets? Why, servants and whores, of course. These servants and whores opened the Hellfire Club in 1718. Other clubs would open worldwide. If the sun never set on the British Empire, then the night always fell on the Hellfire Club. Depravity indulged anonymously, and in perfect privacy. Also the clientele believed. Currently, all clubs are overseen by the Lord Imperial, Hugo Swan. Only the clubs in New York, London, Hong Kong, Madrid, and Paris are open. Nothing lasts forever. Hellfire does. Homo descendis are a constantly mutating species grown from a center. They are meant to mature into the nutrition for an emerging celestial. They are programmed to never leave Earth. In addition, any excessive deviation is either culled by the Eternals, enslaved by the Mole Man, or hunted by Elsa Bloodstone. Deviants are born to suffer. Hiding, self-loathing, and fatalism are all a deviant knows. That is, until recently. A deviant inhuman child has been born. It is good to be a freak after all. Homo Momanus describes several peoples. The Vodani came from planet Vodon. They are a tribal society and worship Neptune. King Thakor's lineage was purged by the Aquios, aquatic vampires. Consequently, no one of Thakor's line could ordain the missing Prince Namor as the next king. And so, Deluvia is governed as a principality. The Tritonians are mermen and mermaids. A mermaid once befriended writer Hans Christian Andersen, author of The Little Mermaid. The Poseidonians resemble surface humans and reside in Poseidonus. They share a common ancestry with Tritonians. Poseidonus is ruled by Queen Atlanta, whose firstborn son, Arthur, is Anax of Atlantis. Lemurians share a common ancestry with the Vodani and reside in Marzan. Lemurians are a tribal society ruled by Queen Lyra. They are a rugged working class. Marzan is the breadbasket of Atlantis. The Tuatha De Danann resides in Tir Na Uj, between Ireland and Iceland. Tuathans worship the goddess Dana. A noble class of magi elects the monarch. Tuathans reject modern medicine. Zebelians reside in Zebel, inside the Bermuda Triangle. A resourceful King Nereus rules Zebel. His daughter, Mera, is wife to the Annex. Zebel began as a penal colony. The Idealists are pacifists who worship Tangaroga. They reside in the twin cities of Shigeris and Crestinus. The valley between the cities is where you find the High Court of Atlantis. Kindly King Thar rules with love and empathy. And finally, the Auranians are a confederation of queendoms, ruled by Queen Eris. Auranians are a matriarchal and multi-ethnic society. While other kingdoms elect a queen's first-born son to become annex, Auranians do not. They elect a queen's first-born daughter. It was twilight's last gleaming. All mortal life had been consumed by the Angarai. Chthon, ruler of the flickering god realms, had fathered the Angarai. The Demiurge, who was life itself, fathered Atum, first of the new gods, to slay the Angarai. Chthon retaliated by draining Atum's mother, Gaia. Atum avenged his mother by castrating Chthon. All the while, chaos consumed the third world. Refusing to die, the Demiurge vowed all will live again. By then, Chthon had hastily, imperfectly, written the Darkhold. Reincarnated into the fourth world, Chthon repopulated his people using the Darkhold. Like the Angarai of old, they reproduced by biting and draining blood. However, they were imperfect. Addicted to blood, they often drained a victim dead. Rarely did a victim transform into a new Angarai. Chthon was later imprisoned within Mount Wundagore, in Transia, now known as Latveria. Vampires were few and far between. However, a Romanian count would forge a nocturnal empire, Dracula. Mutants are 0.5% different from Homo sapiens. Usually, mutant traits are activated under physical trauma during puberty. These traits are exceedingly random. Why so random? A theory exists. Mutants aspire to infinite variety in infinite combinations. Therefore, mutants might be the mortal sphere's immune system. Think about it. High-dimensional beings are born naturally empowered, while their mortal counterparts are not, save for mutants. When the Kree invest, they either yield a perennial profit or a debt everlasting. Over 6,000 years ago, a Kree science expedition abducted a warrior culture. Utilizing Terrigen crystals, Randak invented a mutagen that could activate dormant X sequences. The first success was a cave boy named Tuk. However, results were deemed too random to merit the expenditure. Randak abandoned his creations. He did, however, leave a parting gift: Terrigen crystals. This inhuman genocracy merges individuality with conformity. This is symbolized by wearing masks. When adolescence begins, an individual undergoes terrigenesis. Exposure to terrigen mist causes a cocoon to form around the person. A random mutation then occurs. When a new being emerges, its societal purpose is consequently determined. Terrigenesis sometimes fails. The resulting alpha primitive is enslaved to the simple maintenance tasks in Atalon. Although called inhuman, Homo supremus carries maternal haplogroups U and T, and paternal haplogroup R1b. Don't make them angry. You wouldn't like them when they're angry. Hulks are characterized by genetic atavism. The result is often a mutated Neanderthal appearance. Certain Hulks, such as the Abomination, exhibit reptilian atavism. A Hulk-out is activated by a fight, flight, or freeze emotion. Physical prowess depends on the severity of such emotions. Intellectually, Hulks demonstrate a 5th-level intellect. The exceptions are She-Hulk and Red Hulk. Curiously, Hulks model various non-human complexions, including green, red, yellow, and blue. Bruce Banner has repeatedly alternated between gray and green. Unbelievably, each of his colors corresponds to a different dissociative personality. Biographer Iris Allen claims every Hulk so far descends from the Jekyll family of Cornwall. Hail Hydra! This ruthless terrorist organization began as the SS Death's head units. Hydra was tasked to administer human experimentation. Following the war, Operation Paperclip funneled Hydra personnel to America, where Control founded a Midwestern town for them, Pleasant Hill. Hydra scientists provided the science and technology for Cadmus Project, IO, and Skywatch. Decades later, Control personnel would arrive in Pleasant Hill to find it a ghost town. Tor Lorik San, Bornaka Moor, Natromo Fan Tornek, Wat Or, Ter Lantin Ke Lo Abin Sur, Tan Lek Nok, Formoro Sur. Compassion is the rarest emotion in the universe. Centuries ago, slave traders landed on planet Nok. They built dungeons and breeding cages. No one cared. That is, until Green Lantern Abin Sur arrived. Allied with Nostromo, the slaves were liberated. Rather than indulge revenge, the natives practiced mercy. The slavers were offered to drink from the Indigo Spring. The waters filled the slavers with empathy. A vengeful slave, Iroquois, drank from it as well, and became the messianic Indigo One. Ever since, the Indigo tribe has been the humanitarians among the Spectrum armies. Knock. We drift. We hide. We yearn to confide. We seek to ease the pain inside. Desperate and alone, we take flight. See us for who we are within infrared light. They are called the Losers Club. Vormir, a living world dead on the inside, radiates the infrared spectrum. Angst, depression, sadness. The infrared spectrum seeks out those who need one another. Infrared lanterns cluster together. Clustering unlocks a ring's higher functions. Infrared lanterns can enter each other's minds, share skills, and feel each other's highs and lows. Can the infrared lanterns be all they can be? Well, as the little engine said, I think I can. I think I can. Inhuman DNA was discovered in the general population by Project Cadmus. The discovery led Control to excavate Mount Elbrus. Synthetic materials too ancient to be terrestrial were uncovered. These materials included Terrigen residue. Subjects were identified via the Human Genome Project. Many captives became alpha primitives and were euthanized. Others manifested cocoons. Before emergence, the subjects were freed by Double X. During a battle among S.H.I.E.L.D., OMAC, and Cadmus, the 5 surviving subjects question the sanity of it all. If they are descended from a society bred by aliens, then where did that society go? Stop, collaborate, and listen. The intelligentsia will blind you with science. No science is too mad. No experiment is too unethical, illegal, or fringe. Want proof? Remember Safe Space and Snowflake? Formerly called Steelworks, Ironworks asks, why spend money on built-in obsolescence when you can buy something built to last? The corporatocracy believes that innovation should not be a cure, but rather another cog in the machine. But it forgets that John Henry fought the machine, and won. It began with a newspaper, a UHF station, and a lone radio antenna. It became a Twitter feed, a Pluto channel, and a satellite radio station. In a world of infotainment, one man will put the yellow in yellow journalism. Want to know if SpiderMan is a menace? Is magic turning frogs into Vikings? J. Jonah Jameson will tell you, you can trust him like he trusts his barber. And there came a day unlike any other, when the world's greatest superheroes found themselves united. Dr. Donald Blake was hiking along the fjords of Norway when he discovered a hammer. Tony Stark was visiting the orphanage his late mother had sponsored. Princess Diana had entered man's world to return the body of Steve Trevor. Superboy had long ago retired and since matured into a Superman. Bruce Wayne was pursuing someone with a familiar face, and Steve Rogers was drifting through an America he no longer recognized. And then Darkseid and Lady Loki's wedding invasion opened a boom tube at the Carbonell House. Darkseid would be expelled. Loki would be exiled, and 6 heroes would name their league after one word Darkseid could not translate: justice. Kamar-Taj is a monastery in Kathmandu, Nepal. It trains the next generation of worthy magicians. Kamar-Taj was founded 5,000 years ago by the Ancient One. The monastery was where a tournament was to determine the Sorcerer Supreme. The Ancient One was victorious. He traveled the world, Meta, and the Godsphere. Along the way, he met Kalu, his first apprentice. Together, they enchanted Kamar-Taj to be free of disease and age. Kalu demanded to eliminate infirmity. His master insisted that no magician be perfect. A flawed student would be a wise student. It was then the Ancient One confessed his eyes were blind. Kalu argued how foolish the Ancient One truly was. A wise man would never insist he is wise. Over the centuries, Kamar-Taj has often educated a new Sorcerer Supreme. Today, Kamar-Taj is administered by Headmaster Wong. The Cobra Cult worships Vasuki, one of 8 serpent gods. The cult's leader, Naja Naja, is the avatar of Vasuki. Naja Naja hunts the ultimate buried treasure. When unearthed, the treasure will cause doomsday and the end of the Kali Yuga, the Age of Chaos. From there, a new age of peace will begin. 21 years ago, conjoined twins, Jeffrey and Jason Burr, were separated. Jeffrey was deemed unlikely to survive. The hospital was a front for the Cobra Cult. Cultists were alerted of a child clinging to life days after its death was predicted. The cultists conditioned Jeffrey into the perfect Naja Naja. Strangely, the youth would occasionally experience pain. Unbeknownst to Jeffrey, he was empathetically linked to Jason. The twins were mutants. If one dies, the other dies. The cult is disguised as the Serpent Society, a mercenary union. The society accumulates the resources used by Naja Naja in hunting for the buried treasure. The Serpent Society has a new member, Jason Burr. Ted Cord was a dreamer. He dreamt of flying cars, automated cities, and robotic sidekicks. Chicago is confident. but Ted was downright quixotic. Then, one cold and windy night, Ted was visited by a GPA agent. The agent dared him to stop dreaming. Cord designed Electric City, headquarters to the GPA. Now, Cord Industries is inventing the future Ted Cord always dreamed of. But who was that anonymous agent, and why so interested in Ted Cord? From ruined Maltus, the Kree settled Hala in the Greater Magellanic Cloud. To ensure survival, the Kree had evolved into a warrior culture. Any other evolution was considered unwise. Utilizing Koluan AI, the Kree created a supreme intelligence, a gestalt of their finest minds. The supreme intelligence was both dictator and god. Society came under surveillance by accusers. Defectors were stalked by pursuers. The arts came to reflect this adherence to the state. Genealogical portraits and literary genres, such as the repetitive epic, became popular. To stagnate is to crumble. The Kree did not innovate. Rather than admit their societal philosophy was flawed, the Supreme Intelligence claimed innovation was expensive. This propaganda would prove costly indeed. The Inhumans would conquer their Kree progenitors. The Supreme Intelligence was exiled. Under the Boltagon dynasty, Kree and Inhumans mate to produce Pink Kree. Pink Kree demonstrate more consistent mutations following pterogenesis. The Malthusian apocalypse spawned the Malthusian diaspora. In the Palma system, Hala was settled by a warrior culture. The Kotati natives called these invaders Kree, meaning star petals. In the Talak system, Talak 3, 4, and 8 were settled by 3 distinct cultures. Talak 3 was settled by Byzantine imperialists. Talak 4 was settled by those who valued logic and curiosity. Talak 8 was settled by nomadic tribes. Since Talak 8 received distinct sunlight, the nomads became nocturnal. Both Halans and Talokites worshipped the old Malthusian god, Makas. A clone sisterhood settled Zamaron and weaponized the violet light. And what of those blamed for the Malthusian apocalypse? They were exiled to Earth. During the Karen-Deronian War, Rao crashed on a crystalline world. Like Kara, the crystal planet orbited a red sun. Starving, the Karen crew was absorbed by empathetic crystal creatures. Upon absorption, the crystal creatures exhibited traits identical to those they absorbed. Intrigued, Rao captured a creature for study. Upon rescue, he proposed a most inspired means of surviving the Deronians. To safeguard Karen society, the race, called Caribim, would have limits installed. Rao limited the new race's lifespan. Scientists enabled Caribim to manifest powers under yellow suns, but none under red ones. Shapers installed an anti-cloning sequence. Sorcerers cursed Caribim with a weakness to magic. Psychics ensured an inability to resist mind control. Finally, Caribim was stored on the Crystal World with no memory of deployment. For security, the Titanthropes seeded the solar system with a green radiation to kill any who would leave. The new race was even programmed to lack the word escape. In case of obsolescence, the Titanthropes placed a core killer within the Crystal World. The core killer would detonate after a 10,000-year countdown. The Caribim named their world Krypton. The Banat, crossroads of cultures. Following the parting of the Iron Curtain, the Banat became a crossroads of conflict. The city of Timisoara was bombed 10 times over by 3 armies. Through the wafting smoke and ash arose a man in an iron mask. He had been a humble Romani, cursed with a 12th level intellect. Now he had become a visionary, no surprise to him. He knew these lands, once at war, factions fractured, were meant to be one nation, together, at peace. When he first looked upon the ruins, there was nothing. When he looked again, he saw a rude old man stealing someone's taxi and a truck selling 50 kinds of ice cream. He saw it all under one flag united, under one monarch strong. Temesara would be renamed Doomstad in honor of the monarch. The nation would be called Latveria, the name given by the Romani. Latveria is fully automated. A robotic military patrols the border and surveils the citizenry. Citizens enjoy universal education, healthcare, and basic income. Villagers are allowed democratically elected councils. However, the national government is an autocracy. The people refer to their monarch as the Good Doctor. They must think happy thoughts and say happy words, because once displeased, the Good Doctor will banish them to the mines. Before death, traitors must look upon the face of the Good Doctor. Whatever his deeds, the people always say how good it is that the Doctor did so. In 1090, a doctor was kidnapped and delivered to Alamut Castle in Persia. The nameless doctor was introduced to Hassan Isaba, founder of the Assassin's Order. The doctor had heard tales of this man. By gifting an elixir of life unto his assassins, the doctor was ordered to note every feature and side effect of the elixir. The doctor noted the elixir was best consumed while scalding hot. Its texture and scent were metallic. Injuries healed faster following consumption. Consumers would undergo a derangement until some sense was literally knocked into them. When Saba was fatally wounded by crusaders, he was unable to drink the elixir. The doctor demanded entrance to the source of the elixir. Under Alamut Castle was a molten pool called the Lazarus Pit. Bathing in it did more than restore the assassin to life. It rejuvenated him. Saba faked his death in 1124, and again in 1192. He became the legendary old man in the mountain. Over 2 centuries, the doctor would map Lazarus pits throughout Asia. In 1282, he returned to Alamut to rejuvenate. However, the doctor found the assassins were exterminated by the Order of Saint Dumas. The Order considered everlasting mortal life as a threat. The doctor preyed upon the Order, earning the name Wraith al Ghul. The reformed assassins would purge societies of anyone who followed the Empty Hand and its master, the Dweller in Darkness. Banded together in the Hall of Doom are 13 of the most sinister villains of all time. This intergalactic threat dares to seize immortality and ultimate knowledge. This is the challenge of the Legion of Doom. Lex Luthor is not a Randian. He was simply forced to live like one. He credits his imagination as enabling his survival. He fancies himself as a humanist and humanitarian. Lex randomly chooses a desperate person every morning outside LexCorp to receive a boon from him. He purchases corporations to punish them for lacking imagination. He secretly invents miracle machines and waits for a heroic moment to use them. Once, humanity looked down on impoverished Lex Luthor. Now, humanity will look up and be thankful for him. Created by the Gardener, living planets roam the cosmos, seeking an orbit. Often, an orbit is found where a celestial emergence has obliterated a planet. Other times, they push existing worlds from their orbits. However, living planets are prey as often as they are predator. Although Celestials do not target living planets for impregnation, Galactus will snack off them in lieu of a celestial egg. And, of course, there are those who prey upon living planets for other reasons. Ruled by Kaizen Gamora, Principality of Madripoor is located between Singapore and Sumatra. Once a pirate haven, Madripoor continues to be a haven for underground economies. Hightown is the legitimate front for business and tourism. However, Lowtown is why anyone lives or visits Madripoor at all. When the dark web requires a brick-and-mortar component, Lowtown is its shopping mall. Are you an intelligence agency in need of a black bank? Do you trade in Antarctic vibranium? Or are you a billionaire pedophile avoiding extradition laws? Book your vacation in Madripoor today. The Guardians designed the Manhunters to redeem themselves for the Malthusian apocalypse. The apocalypse created opportunities for the ne'er-do-wells of the cosmos. A humanitarian faction of the Enoch race opted to aid those most exploited. One such species were the pre-industrial Prosilicans of Sector 666. The Prosilican tribes accepted aid from the Enoch humanitarians. However, the Prosilicans weaponized the humanitarian aid against their enemies. Lacking socio-emotional intelligence, the Manhunters ended the conflict by ending the Prosilican species. The Guardians attempted to deactivate their creations, but the Manhunters had disabled this option. Pariahs, the Manhunters retreated to planet Beot in Sector 3601. Now they survive as bodyguards, security, mercenaries, private police, spies, and assassins with organic outer shells. No man escapes the Manhunters. Damn, that's funky. In 1971, musician Johnny Dune led a march on Washington, D.C. Dune held the Capitol hostage with the power of his voice for 68 minutes, symbolizing the year of RFK and MLK assassinations. He revealed mutants were real and were being tested in Vietnam. Throughout the 70s, Dune's band, the Marauders, sang of mutant subculture. Nixon labeled them terrorists for exercising free speech. By 1980, the Marauders vanished. Was Dune a mutant? Was his voice hypnotic? Did it indeed sound like a quiet storm? Oh yeah. Why does Belgium exist? Why does Monaco exist? Why does Markovia exist? The nation was separated from Luxembourg in 1839 by the Third Partition. The Principality of Markovia is governed by a dynasty known for atmospheric, gravimetric, and magnetic powers. Currently, Prince Brion rules a nation of Walloon speakers. By law, he must sire an heir before his death, or else the nation is absorbed by Belgium. Idyllic. Markovia is known for its geothermal energy plants. It is the only European nation offering asylum for mutant refugees. Dateline, 1941. President Roosevelt learns of the Nazi plan to sire a multiversal dynasty. FDR initiates Operation Marvel to recruit super assets. The Marvels save Reality 616 time and time again. However, Submariner went missing. The Torch was rendered lifeless, and Captain America vanished. They were more than the first superhero team. They were Marvels. During the transatlantic slave trade, 12 slave ships ventured to Madagascar to kidnap Black and Malagasy peoples. Among those enslaved were Wakandan anthropologists. The slaves mutinied and established a pirate society on Marzel Island. The Marzel pirates would free hundreds. The Wakandans among them smuggled vibranium to Marzel. However, Wakanda allowed the smugglers access to imperfect Antarctic vibranium mined in the Savage Land. Consequently, Marzel's force field malfunctioned, vibrating the island in and out of view every 200 years. This vibrational tuning has gifted many in Marzel with sonic powers. It is known by many names. First town in the first state. The Big Apricot, City of Tomorrow. It is Metropolis. The city is truly a modern marvel. Urban farms, solar panel skyscrapers, and food co-ops define the metropolitan spirit. Metropolis began as Swan Valley, founded by the Dutch in 1631. The colony offered land in exchange for labor to local Lenape people. Although Delaware was a slave state, Metropolis outlawed slavery within its city limits in 1838. Lewis Beach was a station along the Underground Railroad. Following the Civil War, Swan Valley began incorporating more land, becoming Metropolis. Old money was then persuaded to sell off businesses, either to the city or to the unions, and retire to suburbs. This attracted individually minded persons seeking the metropolitan dream. Metropolitans are considered the most civically engaged people in America, and Superman is the most civically engaged of all. William Somerset was to retire following the 7 Deadly Sins case. However, Commissioner Gordon offered Somerset a whole new beat, the Midnight Desk. Paired with yet another brash young partner, Somerset investigates the more disturbing cold cases from Gotham's past. Headquartered in the decommissioned Precinct 13, near Slaughter Swamp, the Midnight Desk is haunted by more than just the ghosts of Gotham's past. Somerset himself is haunted by the ghost of John Doe. The world is a fine place and worth fighting for. But does Somerset still believe in the second part? That is the question. She was born nearly 20,000 years ago. She is immortal. She is the mother of all mutants. She is of mitochondrial haplogroup L3. She birthed the externals, who in turn birthed all mutant classes today. She has been named innumerable times. Succubus, Mother of Monsters, Madonna, but her favorite is Selene. What caused her mutation she knows not. What she does know is that she brought mutants into this world, and she can take them out. Never queen to be. Ramakrishna Afterlife. Kismet. Destiny. Have you been blindsided by personal injury, employer negligence, or a mafia hit? Have you ever been bitten by radioactive spiders, blinded by toxic waste, blown up by your own company's artillery, impersonated by a shapeshifter, irradiated by a malfunctioning gamma bomb, lost your hair from fumes blown at you by teenage aliens, trapped inside of a cocoon after breathing in a terrigen cloud? Then you are entitled to justice. Call Nelson and Murdoch today. Some say all the good lawyers are in hell. Nelson and Murdoch say all the good lawyers are in Hell's Kitchen. Matthew Michael Murdoch graduated top of his class from Columbia Law School. Foggy Nelson is also a lawyer, and Karen Page works there too. Nelson and Murdoch is where justice may be blind, but it can see in the dark. Whatever the hell that means. If you or someone you love has been affected by mind control, hexes and curses, lab accidents, mesothelioma, or SpiderMan being a menace, then call Nelson and Murdoch at 212-MMM-1964. That's 212-MMM-1964. Today. When there's trouble, you know who to call. When there is evil on the attack, New York can rest knowing they have its back. They never met a villain that they liked. Because when the world is losing all control, for truth, justice, and pizza, the new Titans go. Why does justice never sleep? Because it is always woke. Olympia is the city of the Eternals. Located in Antarctica, Olympia was grown, not built. The city's defenses are capable of repelling Galactus, In the past, Olympia successfully defended itself against Brainiac. The city houses a database of all recorded history throughout the 616. Olympia can reconfigure into thrones for visiting Celestials. Upon emergence, Olympia can also reconfigure into armor for the newborn Celestial. The city is even alive with the Eternals referring to its consciousness as the Machine. Zurus, the King Eternal, can speak with the city and voice its words. What's mine is mine, and mine and mine, and mine and mine and mine, not yours. The greedy Larfleeze was a failed prospector turned claim jumper. He famously trapped the Ophidian, avatar of greed, inside his orange lantern. With his precious ring empowered, Larfleeze began collecting, consuming, and hoarding uncontrollably. Larfleeze has stolen shrunken cities from Brainiac, infinity gems from the Elders, and Dazzler's unreleased demos. His number one competitor is the Collector, with whom he has been known to slapfight. Larfleeze is greedy, but never for knowledge, and the only thing he gives is demands. Norman Virgil Osborn was a lonely little boy with a whimsical imagination and a plethora of imaginary friends. Norman was born in New Haven, the son of Amberson Osborn, a milquetoast executive. His mother was a Stepford wife. The family became pariahs when Amberson lost his job. Norman came to despise his father, resolving to be a better provider. Norman attended Empire State University to study coding, engineering, and pharmacology. Impressed with Norman's versatility, Professor Mendel Strom helped him get government funding to found Oscorp. Norman subsequently married into high society and fathered a son, Harry. Strom became concerned with Norman's acquisitions of all toy, game, and comics IP that comforted him as a child. He felt Norman had lost touch with reality. Strom attempted to lock Norman out of Oscorp, but Norman framed him for embezzlement. Norman began pursuing pet projects inspired by his childhood. One was a toy called the Green Goblin. They are hunters of impossible treasures. Their goal is to uncover a better world. These mystery archaeologists live by a heartfelt motto: "It's a strange world. Let's keep it that way."
Living up to the rip of your streets, from Condon down to Harlem. Invisible, no more, you're in a league of your own now, no longer under anyone's thumb. You feel the heat summoned up from inside, ready to pounce, feeling alive. It's the fire of the dragon, it's the will of who's right. You know it's not enough to survive. You have to have the will to thrive, so you better light up heaven and earth tonight with fire of the dragon. Ready now for the fight of your life, from New York on to Hong Kong. Incredible, the odds you're at are lost for it now, no longer under anyone's boot. You feel the heat summoned up from inside, ready to pounce, feeling alive. It's the fire of the dragon, it's the will of who's right. You know it's not enough to survive. You have to have the will to thrive, so you better light up heaven and earth tonight with fire of the dragon.
That song always reminded me of The Outsiders. Oh, what was that? Don't quit my day job. Well, I said I was the one above all. I never said I was Adele. Paradise Island is the invisible home of the Amazons. Located in the Aegean, the island is considered neutral ground by Dream, Vanaheim, Olympus, Nightmare, Hell, and the Underworld. Embassies even exist for these 6 god realms. Paradise Island was chosen due to it being a nexus point for those gods who evolved in the 616. Machinery on the island is comprised of an invisible substance, suspected of being a creation metal. The invisible machines operate the portals and manufacture vehicles. Paradise Island also imprisons various offenders from the god realms. For centuries, the Amazons were told the immortality would end if a man ever stepped foot on the island. However, this was proven false when dying pilot Steve Trevor parachuted into paradise. The year was 2001. The place was the Peak. When Control uncovered alien shipwrecks, Ferris Aircraft was tasked with manufacturing an orbital watchtower. It would be the HQ of Skywatch. The Peak was commanded by Henry Bendix. An espionage fleet, crewed by the clones, was launched from the Peak into the classified unknown. 10 years ago, Skywatch was overtaken by the GPA. Bendix fled. The Peak is now HQ to Sword. An ill wind blew through Pleasant Hill. When that wind wrecked Zatanna's tour bus, she booked a motel room for the night. Zatanna awoke hearing backwards whispers on the wind. Skulking around town, Zatanna uncovered underground labs where AI was being disassembled. The robots, androids, and synthetics were being tortured by Mayor Maria Hill. Zatanna happened upon the disassembled body of Red Tornado. It was his wind spirit that beckoned Zatanna. While the AI was being freed, Othun struck with quakes, floods, tornadoes, fires, and lightning. The wind spirit sacrificed itself to halt Othun. Meanwhile, Ultron 13, a servitor droid, escaped with Red Tornado's disassembled body. Once upon a time, in a walled-off town in Texas, William Stryker dreamed of his own megachurch. All he needed was a unique selling point. Then he heard of mutants. For William, the mutant aspiration for infinite variety and infinite combinations meant predatory breeding. And so, William began preaching about human replacement theory. American built, American made. Q-Core builds all the DIY for the common person to become self-sustaining. Oliver Queen has transformed daily life for reservations, low-income neighborhoods, and small farms. Detractors have mocked Queen for his utopian vision of a post-scarcity society. Critics have called him a communist with money. Queen cares not for bickering. Seattle is the Emerald City, and he is the wizard. But it is the corporatocracy who yearns to be behind the curtain. Centuries ago, alien factions fought a war in Central America. One faction worshipped Quetzalcoatl, the other followed Tezcatlipoca. A fallen warrior was lost. His armor was divided among the witnesses, who became heroes among the Aztecs, Toltecs, Mayans, and Incans. By the 1980s, Vadino, an Aztec, became caretaker of the Golden Belt. Dr. Cobras, then avatar of Naja Naja, sought the golden mask of the lost warrior. Knowing this, Vadino bequeathed the Golden Belt to Tony Farms, the Puma Man. Farms defeated Cobras and obtained the mask. Since then, Puma Man has founded the Q Society. Kurak was under Ottoman rule until overthrown during World War I. When the British invaded Al-Kuwait, Hassan al-Sadr sought Arab allies along the Arabian coast. He united the eastern coast of Arabia and reclaimed Al-Kuwait, establishing modern Kurik. Crowned Suleiman I, Hassan played both sides during the Cold War. Today, Kurik plays both sides in the War on Terror. Recently, Kurik has uncovered deposits of nth metal and intends to be the Wakanda of the Middle East. People need killing, and Amanda Waller thought Danny Rand's needed killing indeed. Rand's humanitarian causes were inconvenient for power elites. Waller's Suicide Squad botched the mission. Iron Fist one-punched the whole squad. Rand then thought to recruit his own squad. This squad could be hired to protect humanitarian workers. So what is this? Some kind of heroes for hire? Enkidu, Wendigo, Skinwalkers, Leopard Men, Werewolves. All are avatars of the Red. The Red is the spiritual realm of fauna. Governed by the Parliament of Limbs, the Red connects all animal life and microorganisms. It was created by the Animal Masters. Of course, the Red is wild, both valuing and wasting life. To waste life is to indulge bloodlust, sport, and dominance. This is called the Antagon, the devouring of life. To check the Antagon, the Animal Masters bred the Red avatars. When an avatar has ended its hunt, it will sacrifice itself to the Parliament of Limbs. While the Green chooses one avatar at any given time, the Red breeds a pack. With blood and rage of crimson red, ripped from a corpse so freshly dead, together with our hellish hate, we'll burn you all. That is your fate. When the Manhunters exterminated the Prosilicans, many planets became collateral damage. One such planet, Eastmold, was rendered a barren wasteland. The lone survivor, Atrocitus, cried out in a rage so mindless it attracted the Butcher, the Rage Avatar. Atrocitus instinctively carved the central red battery. The Butcher then vomited its fiery blood to ignite that battery. Rage is a burning sickness. Are you done with it? Greed is good. In business, Roxxon is both firefighter and arsonist. The firm was founded by Alexander Jones, who made his fortune advising Joseph Stalin on the Soviet oil fields. By his death, Roxxon was the largest privately held conglomerate on Earth. Roxxon was acquired by the mysterious Dario Agger during a hostile takeover. Now, Roxxon secretly plunders riches from throughout the 616. Using labyrinthine portal networks, Roxxon mines Niedervilliers, drills in Muspelheim, and trades in Svartalfheim. But how did Roxxon come into possession of such access? The Sanctum Sanctorum is located at 177A Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village. It sits where many ley lines intersect. In times past, Wappinger shamans used the ley lines as roads throughout the 616. The house itself was constructed in 1624 by a witch hunter. Eventually, it was purchased by Wong as a satellite campus for Comitage. Currently, it is residence to Stephen Strange, Sorcerer Supreme. The Savage Land is a wildlife preserve located in Antarctica. The preserve was crafted by the alien Nuwali, whose machines provide a tropical habitat. The preserve includes dinosaurs evolved from the Triassic. Modern humans began colonizing the preserve during the late Pleistocene. A colony of deviants resides there. Its most famous ambassador is Kevin Plunder, aka Kazar. Metropolis has a history of specialized divisions. The most recent is the Science Police, established to confront high-tech crimes, and is unique and unorthodox. Skills are chosen and taught based on those of known heroes for particular situations. Officers are called Golden Guardians, and the Blue Shield is Field Commander. Inspector Maggie Sawyer has been appointed to run the Science Police, and she has her work cut out for her. Recently, Guardian Harper killed a mutant child, claiming her glow-in-the-dark power was a weapon. They are not a team. They just need each other to take down Wilson Fisk. But it will be a cold day in Hell's Kitchen before the Kingpin allows that. Hell's Kitchen will burn. Before the Thunderbolts, there was the Secret Six. Bobby Morse, formerly S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent 19, was tasked by the GPA in leading the team. The final mission involved tracking down criminals from Io and Skywatch. However, the team was too brilliant for its own good and discovered the secret origin of the GPA. Mockingbird was ordered to allow OMAC to execute her friends. Following this, she was tasked with creating a new kind of team, the Thunderbolts. The Shi'ar is an avian race from planet Chandalar in Space Sector 43. The species is also known for their beautiful bird songs. Biologically, they lay eggs, and females nurse the hatchlings. Politically, the throne is inherited by the next oldest living heir. Any child born in the palace shows a line of succession. Each non-Shi'ar species sends an empowered representative to join the Imperial Guard. The Guard is led by Kalark, the gladiator from Strontia. The Imperial Guard prays to Phoenix the Flamebird for victory. The Shi'ar is obsessed with marriage. Religion tells of the gods Shara and Kithri, who were forced to marry. Ergo, the Shi'ar marries other cultures, against their will. Assimilation of other worlds is celebrated in the same style as a royal wedding. I once attended a Shi'ar wedding, but I was thrown out and accused of cannibalizing the unborn for bringing deviled eggs. The helicarrier was designated Project Robert at Ferris Aircraft. It was invented by Daniel Lone Eagle, was meant to be the airborne HQ of I.O. Following the hostile takeover by the GPA, the helicarrier now serves S.H.I.E.L.D. The Skrull Empire has colonized a third of the Andromeda Galaxy in Space Sector 2813. It is the oldest interstellar empire in the universe. The empire is ruled by Emperor Doric and Empress Veranki from their capital, Tarnax 4. The Skrulls were created by the center of the planet Zor, who had designed deviants capable of escaping a celestial emergence. The first such Zorian was Sulgurt, first of the new changing people. Since the emergence was successful, Kleben, the last Zorian Eternal, was lacking his locality instinct, and so fled with Sulgurt. This is why it's unlawful for a Skrull to kill one who has saved his or her life. Settling on Tarnax 4, the Skrulls built their own cities, founded their own armies, codified their own religion, and birthed their own dynasty. One thing I learned in this armpit of a city: best po' boy sandwiches ever. St. Roch was originally Lamoine, until a yellow fever outbreak stigmatized the city in 1868. The city was founded by St. Roch of the Order of St. Duma. You have the Jazz and Bluegrass Festival, a Vampire Pride Parade, and riverboat casino hotels. You can tour the Stone Chat Museum, where Cotter Hall will wax historical so poignantly you would think he actually lived through it all. Fun fact, Logan once lived here, when he was known as a riverboat gambler named Patch. When the Inhumans conquered the Kree Empire, Starforce absconded with the Supreme Intelligence. Centuries have passed. Members have come and gone. But the mission remains the same: to restore the Supreme Intelligence to power. Currently, Starforce is hiding among the ruins of planet Maltus, the ancestral world. The team is Dr. Min Irva, Green Lantern Atlas, half-Inhuman Marielle, and half-Inhuman Commando Yon-Rogg. Every member had been loyal to the cause, until Marvel abandoned her mother, Marielle, to claim the legendary Naga bands. This prompted Yon-Rogg to dare wear the unstable Rin bands, said to channel the physics of Reality 712. While Starforce may yet save the Supreme Intelligence, who will save Starforce from the madness of Yon-Rogg? Star Labs was created as a joint venture among Q-Corps, Rand, Cord, the Wakanda Design Group, Stark Solutions, and the Future Foundation. Its mission is to create pool resources, to solve humanitarian and environmental crises. Among its illustrious talent are T.O. Morrow, Silas Stone, Kavita Rao, Amadeus Cho, Harrison Wells, Helen Cho, Maya Hansen, Eduardo Dorado, Princess Shuri, Ryan Choi, Natasha Irons, and Sotinwa. Fun fact, Star Labs was once sued for trademark infringement by Emos Champion. For hearts long lost and full of fright, for those alone in blackest night, accept our ring and join our fight. Love conquers all, with violet light. The Star Sapphire Sisterhood wields the violet light. Since love is an extreme emotion, sapphires are prone to extreme measures. Yet, a sapphire will always feel justified in her actions. Their avatar is the Predator, the Love Avatar. Their headquarters, Zamaron, is a crystalline world, whereupon a sapphire's mind is recorded into memory crystals. For what purpose, the sapphires do not yet know. The Sisterhood's patron guardian is male. Herupa Hando Hu claims his patronage is not ironic at all. He is, after all, a famous ladies' man. Christopher Summers was a dreamer, but his heart was gold. Years ago, he and his pregnant wife, Catherine, were abducted by Shi'ar. His two sons, Scott and Alex, were left behind, separated in the adoption system. Meanwhile, Catherine was vivisected, and her newborn, Gabriel, was taken into the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. A pirate ship then raided the Shi'ar craft, rescuing Chris. The pirates, called Starjammers, were scourges of the Shi'ar Empire, and especially its tyrannical magister, Deken. Renaming himself Corsair, Chris now regretted the times he had daydreamed, rather than dedicate himself to family. Now his swashbuckling dreams are a living nightmare. Every night, Corsair sings alone to himself. Just one more night, and I'm coming off this long and winding road. Soon, he will be. Following the hostile takeover of Stark Industries by the now defunct Stain International, Tony Stark founded a new firm, Stark Solutions. No military or police contracts are accepted, so of course the firm is always under attack by politicians, corporate rivals, and conspiracy theorists. Stark Solutions furnishes cybernetic limbs to amputees, IntelliCrops for desert lands, and AI financial modeling. Its motto is to put business out of business. Centuries ago, the Karen elite fled the Daemonites by fleeing into the Phantom Zone. Now Void has freed them. Reorganizing into covert action teams, the Karens seek to reclaim their empire. Being Kryptonian, Superman cannot resist commands by Karen lords. So he has recruited those with grudges against the Karens. Stormwatch seeks out Karen infiltrators and re-imprisons them in the Phantom Zone. Don't let their dated appearance fool you. They're heroes, not zeros. You know what? People need killing. And since the American prison system allows for slavery, why not use convicts to kill fugitives? The deal is simple. Survive 5 years of wet work, then walk free. Those offered the deal are convicts who have killed or almost killed a super being. Those who accept the deal receive a nanobomb brain implant. Disobey or die. Hey, what is this? Some kind of suicide squad? Following the hostile takeover, the GPA reorganized Skywatch into SWORD, the Sapient World Observation and Response Division, spies on dozens of planets. Director Abigail Brand speaks over 800 languages. Her father was from planet Axis, and her mother from Papua New Guinea. Her advisors are Leo Quintim and Shea Veritas. SWORD also collects and disposes of Omega-class extraterrestrial weaponry. No one knows exactly where such weaponry is deposited. Only the code name is known. God Garden. Those who enslaved them called them Trox. Those who love them call them sexy. Tamaranians are a peaceful people who exhibit highly nuanced socio-emotional learning. Like the Kryptonians, they are a photosynthetic race. Rather than absorb yellow sunlight to trigger powers, Tamaranians can absorb any color sunlight for sustenance, healing, and powers. This ability came from selective breeding of Tamaranian mutants. Planet Tamaron is governed by an elected monarchy. The Tamaranians worship Zal, once hostess to the Endless Phoenix. It is a misconception that Tamaranians require kissing to learn a stranger's language. You know, this one time, a red-haired Tamaranian woman made me in her when she took a on my and then had a sister all up in my Then she stopped in the middle of it to fight Gordanians. Stupid, sexy Tamaranians. Gather round the campfire, dear reader. Hatton Corners, Rhode Island, was founded in 1779. It is known as the windiest town in the state. The legend goes that local teacher Bronwell Stick was the first white settler. He would lease the town in exchange for an annual passenger pigeon feather. Bromwell was secretly in love with Lorelei, a widowed innkeeper, whose daughter attended his school. Despite hearing cautious whispers in the wind, Bromwell confessed his feelings to the widow during the Windy Season Festival. Bromwell retreated to his schoolhouse on the edge of the town. While retreating, he again heard the winds whispering to him. A twister devastated only the inn and killed only the innkeeper's daughter. Bromwell was blamed and was chased to Goat Island, where he was burned and his ashes scattered in the winds. And so began the legend of Mr. Twister. In the 21st century, Hatton Corners began experiencing unsolved disappearances of children. Only young Eddie Corliss was found. He claimed Mr. Twister almost got him. Bucky Barnes, newly freed of being the Winter Soldier, was drifting through Hatton Corners. He checked into the local inn and was arrested on suspicion of snatching a child near Goat Island. Bucky was released when the child reappeared with a similar story to Eddie's. Believing a supernatural presence at work, Bucky attempted to contact the Justice League. However, he succeeded only in contacting the other sidekicks. Donning his original costume, Bucky, along with Robin, Wonder Girl, Aqualad, Red Arrow, and Kid Flash, faced the ghostly Mr. Twister. He agreed to free the children if the town paid him a passenger pigeon feather. The town elders regrettably informed him the pigeon went extinct in 1910. The sidekicks freed the children from Goat Island. Realizing the island winds had been slowly accumulating Twister's ashes, the sidekicks set it ablaze. And that is the story of how Eddie Corliss named the Teen Titans. Now past the s'mores. Xin Zheng saw his parents cry only twice. Once was during the Hong Kong handover. Twice was when China erased Hong Kong forever. Reduced from a son of a diplomat and a noblewoman, Xin Zheng wandered Asia, hunted as a political fugitive. Alone in Mongolia, he took shelter in a forbidden cave within a cave. There he found the 10 rings in a crashed McLuhan starship. While mastering the rings, Xin renamed himself the Mandarin. In times past, the Mandarins were the bureaucrats who invented a language that unified China. It would be his mission to unify China under a post-communist monarchy. The 10 rings are a namesake of both his organization and his personal guard. Each guardsman mirrors a different ring's ability. The 10 rings are dedicated to redrawing the map of China, freeing all the oppressed peoples by any means necessary. This has frequently brought Mandarin into conflict with the Great Ten, the Hand, the League of Assassins, and especially Iron Man. While he might liken himself to Genghis Khan, I liken him more to a Bond villain. The Thanagarians began as the Deathbringers, an army of Reapers led by Thanos. Eventually, Qatar, the favorite of Thanos, would lead a rebellion against the Man-Titan. Currently, the Thanagarians share a world with those they were meant to exterminate, the Lizarkans. Together, they enjoy the abundant nth metal that levitates entire cities. Outsiders consider Thanagar to be a police state. However, that is a misconception. Biologically, Thanagarians share a common ancestor with the Shi'ar, the Manhawk. Culturally, Thanagarians worship the same gods as the Shi'ar. Shara and Kithri are the marriage gods, who marry the Thanagarians to the Lizarkans. Primarily, Thanagarians worship Barbatos, the Nightwing. In legend, the Nightwing whispered the idea of rebellion into Qatar's ear. Following the sanction of the Secret Six, the GPA ordered Mockingbird to recruit a new team for missions too sensitive for sword, shield, or armor. This team would pose as heroes and villains. Mockingbird recruited a disgraced former Captain America, now known as U.S. Agent, Cube inmate Nova the Marvel Boy, professional body double the Human Target, mimicry trainer Taskmaster, professional thief Catman, mercenary Songbird, and a former Iron Man, now called War Machine. However, Mockingbird's fear of the GPA is colliding with her love for her newest recruit, Hawkeye. The TVA prevents the unraveling of Earth-Zero via HYPERTIME threading. Lower-ranked TVA employees, called chrono monitors, are literally a faceless bureaucracy. When a new timeline threads, a chrono monitor is created to surveil it. Usually, time travelers and speedsters are eliminated. However, particular threads are fortified. To collect intelligence on these branch timelines, the TVA outsourced to either uneasy or blackmailed allies, like Hot Pursuit and Justice Pax. An ally is accompanied by the adorable Miss Minutes. I bought a plushie of her at the planet Krypton shop. Located on an island off the East River, Titan's tower was designed by Silas Stone. Cyborg can remote control all functions. The tower can reconfigure into a rocket and dock, either with the helicarrier or the pig. It can also reconfigure into a mecha. It is the ultimate clubhouse with free cable, a swimming pool, and a closet full of suede leather jackets and turtlenecks. Simon Utrecht piloted the plans for the Excelsior. His aim was to survey the cosmos for exploitable resources. Recruiting his best sycophants, Utrecht ventured into the unknown. Along the way, they encountered the same residual power cosmic as the Richards expedition. Utrecht became the telekinetic vector, and Darnell became living toxic vapor. Jimmy Darnell became the radioactive X-ray, and Mike Steele became ironclad. Utrecht soon pillaged resources that made him a trillionaire 10 times over. The UFOs would survive Lobo, Larfreeze, and even the Hulk. Yet the UFOs were unable to survive the power cosmic. During a conflict with Superman, Utrecht would witness his compatriots wither and die. Utrecht utilized Kryptonian technology to grow himself a new body comprised of Kryptonian robotics and Superman's DNA. Utrecht has thus rebranded himself as Synthetic Man. Project Ultimen was an ancillary endeavor. History student Toshio Ito was found to have fifth-dimensional power. Tai Longshadow had powers from a magic powder. Jocko Hawkins wielded lightning that defied physics. Eduardo Dorado was bonded to a golden harness. And Angelica Jones had the mutant power to control fire spirits. The 5 were freed by S.H.I.E.L.D., but were tracked by Brother Eye. Eventually, they blinded Brother Eye to their existence, and subsequently parted ways. By shield of day and shield of night, we feed and grow. Beyond all sight, your darkest self shall be our night. Wield the sword of unseen light. The ultraviolet light was what Sinestro was seeking when scouring the ancient ruins on his native Corridor. The central power battery of these lanterns is the living galactic core of Umbrax, the Black Galaxy. The emotional spectrum wielded by these lanterns includes the selfish emotions of shame, guilt, envy, and pride. Umbrax is a living galaxy and is sire of the living planets. Umbrax is known as the Black Galaxy due to its core and suns radiating only invisible ultraviolet light. This living phantom galaxy plays with the more selfish hidden emotions. Despite its name, the Black Galaxy is not a portal into the black or dark multiverse. It is only a dark portal into your soul. Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. The fault is a rift in space-time in Space Sector 43. Beyond is the Cancerverse, where life metastasizes due to the anti-death equation. The Universal Church of Truth considers the anti-death equation to be a scripture. Believers worship a hierarchy of many angled ones, the empty hand, and the dweller in darkness. Missionaries go planet to planet spreading the good news that mortality has been cured. If a planet refuses to believe, that planet is then purified of all life. Purification is performed by Azrael Knights. Missionaries convert new believers by exposing them to the Cancerverse, where they are rendered imperfectly immortal by the anti-death equation. The church leader is known as the Magus. He is responsible for countless atrocities, and worst, bad hair. "10,000 BC. a nomadic tribe comprised of 4 clans, settled near a vibrating mound. Tribal healer Bashenga investigated the mound. Bashenga experimented with the strange meteorite. Discovering multiple uses, Bashenga was elected king by all 4 clans. Today, Wakanda is a post-scarcity society. It is also one of the 2 nations that repelled Darkseid and Lady Loki's wedding invasion. Wakandans are comprised of 4 clans: Black Panther, White Gorilla, Red Lion, and Green Crocodile. Each clan worships a patron deity. Panthers worship Bast, Gorillas worship Hanuman, Lions worship Sekhmet, and the Crocodiles worship Sobek. Clan lords advise the king. Contrary to popular belief, a king is never chosen based on competitive combat. Rather, a king must pass trials that gauge diplomacy, science, reasoning, altruism, work ethic, patience, creativity, sacrifice, and non-lethal combat. The trials are conducted by clan lords, while commoners choose each trial. The new king then eats the heart-shaped herb to undergo a spiritual vision. Linguistics reveals a Proto-Afro-Asiatic origin. Genetics show a curious prevalence of BM109, Y-DNA, and L3 mitochondrial DNA. The average Wakandan has 9th level intellect. Although a state secret, vibranium deposit equals $10 trillion. Wakanda forever. Eons ago, humanitarians among the Enoch race witnessed their outreach efforts end in the Prosilican genocide of Sector 666. The Enoch government exiled these humanitarians to die in space. They were rescued by the Guardians, who shared responsibility for the genocide. Seeking wisdom, the humanitarians obtained cosmic awareness. A schism then occurred. One faction vowed to control all variables, and settled on Okara. The other vowed to watch HYPERTIME, and settled in the blue area. And so became the Watchers. Wayne Enterprises was founded by brothers Solomon and Joshua Wayne. Architect Cyrus Pinckney put Wayne Tower in the city center and adorned it with 13 gargoyles. Eventually, the firm would venture into building Gotham's infrastructure. Currently, Wayne Enterprises employs a third of Gotham's workforce. The firm also employs a 24-hour employment model in its industrial ventures. Wayne Enterprises recently became private and is owned by the Wayne Foundation, a venture philanthropy organization. The Wayne Foundation specializes in discovering and nurturing STEM, business, and artistic talent. The firm has also been central to many an urban legend. My favorite legend is that Bruce Wayne dresses young boys like traffic lights. Once upon a time, there was an unnamed planet under a red sun. The Celestials impregnated that planet, created Eternals and Deviants, and awaited emergence. The Center, tasked with birthing Deviants, possessed a design flaw. It could birth Deviants without a locality instinct. These Deviants could escape the planet. Fearing of Celestials' learning, the Eternals invented a subrace, Karens. Likewise, without a locality instinct, the Karens could also replenish its numbers, albeit limitedly. Assuming superiority, they escaped the planet before detonating a core killer. The Celestials assumed an alien attack had occurred. The Karens settled Kara and subjugated the Titanthropes. They colonized hellish worlds under red suns, until pinching the Duronians, whose worlds were under yellow suns. The Karens manufactured their own subrace to combat the Duronians. Once victorious, the Karens stored their living weapons on Krypton. Meanwhile, The Daemonites possessed Karen after Karen, puppeteering them into mass suicide. The survivors fled to their afterlife, the Phantom Zone. While Hollywood has disposable stars, Russia has disposable heroes. Well, except for Ursa Major, you have any idea how hard it is to find werebears? The Winter Guard is Russia's home team. The members come and go, but their jerseys are never retired. Crimson Dynamo is the source DNA for the Rocket Red clones. The Black Widow is always the finest female graduate of the notorious Red Room. Vanguard is always the national hero. A Darkstar is always a Dark Force user. However, in recent years, the Red Room has produced more unique members for the glory of the Third Rome. In Russia, keep your guard up. Mutatis Mutandis, located at 1407 Graymarken Lane in Salem Center, the Xavier School is a safe place for mutants. The neoclassic mansion was built by Charles and Marcia Graymarken. Charles murdered his first heir for kissing another boy. His second heir, Cassandra, married Patrick Xavier, an abolitionist. He also used the mansion as a phony Underground Railroad terminal where he captured runaway slaves and resold them. Graymarken was compelled to suicide by the voice of an Underground Rail conductor. During Vietnam, Brian Xavier abandoned the mansion to dodge the draft. He later returned and married Sharon. Charles Xavier was born following several miscarriages. His twin, Cassandra, was institutionalized. A bookish child, Charles was highly empathetic and intuitive. When his nurturing father died, his mother married her therapist, Kurt Marco. Kane, his new stepbrother, was a bully. While touring Serbia, he met Eric Lenscher, who co-founded the school. Charles would later make the grave mistake by helping Eric liberate Genosha. They awoke in artificial wombs. Their minds called out to their beloved professor. They were a presence he had not felt since that day in Genosha. To their confusion, the professor came with new X-Men and an older Iceman. Now, these clones returned to lives not their own. They thought they knew who they were. But who are they now? Gifted students? Or an X-Factor? The good died young. It was then that Charles Xavier realized mutants needed more than peace. Mutants needed search and rescue. Professor X decided to recruit new X-Men. Each one would be a survivor. Coming your way. In blackest day, in brightest night, beware your fears made into light. Let those who try to stop what is right burn like his power, Sinestro's might. Thor Sinestro was an archaeologist who lived among the ancient ruins of Corrigar. After overcoming a Fear Eater, he was recruited into the Green Lanterns. Thor became disillusioned, as willpower was the most fragile emotion. He knew all too well that fragility led to ruin. Fearing his beloved Corrigar would fall into ruin, Sinestro sought a better control. He communed with Parallax, the Fear Avatar. Sinestro at last had a better control. Fear itself. Some say it is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. The Zamarons never lose. Following the Malthusian apocalypse, the Zamarons, a clone race of warrior women, settled on a crystal planet in Sector 1416. That planet was the hunting ground for the Predator, the Love Avatar. Refusing to lose love, the Zamarons began encoding their memories in the native crystals. When a clone dies, a crystal endows a new Zamaron with the forebear's memories. Not fair, you ask? All is fair in love, and love conquers all. I am the one above all, and join me again as I continue to tour Secret Crisis, the DC Marvel Multiverse.